Jayda's going to come on shortly. Let's put on her. She made a fantastic video I just happened to see earlier that really did kind of articulate what we're going to talk about shortly. And I thought in such a short period, in such a short video, it actually did articulate everything that really I've been sort of debating with some of the Tommy Tard people out there. And they see nothing wrong with what Tommy's doing at the moment. They generally can't see it. They're under that spell of like thinking that Tommy's still great and not actually betraying the country. Let me just put this on and show you what I mean.
The Israeli Jew that told Tommy Robinson there's a special place in hell for the UK has doubled down on his comment and said that anyone offended by it is obviously anti-Semitic and taking it out of context.
And I said there's a special place in hell for the British.
You know, the UK has got a special place in my heart because on the one hand, they really helped give birth to the Jewish state in World War I. The Balfour Declaration, the San Remo Accords, the mandate for a Jewish Palestine, the UK was at the forefront of that. And then they turned on us.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
They turned on us, man. And therefore they have a special place in hell.
All those anti-Semites are people looking to dismiss Tommy Robinson that are taking this thing out of context.
Talk about cry out in pain as they strike you. Let me just be clear. Britain is a sovereign Christian nation. We are under no obligation to support Israel or any foreign nation for that matter. But that man and every single one of his countrymen believe that you and I and your family, your wife, husbands, parents, grandparents, your children, your grandchildren, all deserve to go to hell unless we support the Jewish people in Israel. Can you imagine if a Russian said there's a special place in hell for the UK for turning their back on the Russian people? Or if an Indian said there's a special place in hell for the UK for not supporting India? Or would you allow an African to sit in front of you and tell you that there's a special place in hell for you for not supporting Africa? That place in the Middle East that calls itself Israel is no different to any other country. And contrary to what Tommy might tell you, they have never been our ally. These people
it's so true.
2 British sergeants from trees, and they planted a bomb to booby trap the bodies so that when a British army captain tried to cut them down, it exploded in his face. These people bombed the British Army headquarters in the King David Hotel and killed.
This, do you know what makes me sick about this? This is literally, obviously, in 1946, 1 year after the war, almost a year after the war, and despite millions of our soldiers, British soldiers, millions, far more than 6 million, may I add, dying in that conflict, these individuals then bomb us in what was then the British Mandate Palestine. After that, after we have done everything for them, they then do stuff like this. And I've been kind of debating online these Tommy Tard supporters, mostly the kind of the Lotus eaters, or I call them low take eaters, because there's always low takes from the Lotus eaters, and they're supporting the Sargonites and all of that, and they generally can't see the problem with Tommy. And I'm trying to explain this. This is why I see Jayda's in the background there. I had you on after your video, Jayda. I thought this video was absolutely fantastic because it really did only like a 5-minute video. It perfectly articulated why these people are not our friends, and everything that Tommy is doing right now over there, as well as his other bottom feeders, his Tommy Tard bottom feeders, like Leo Curse, I see is out there now as well, is that these individuals, is that they are essentially traitors to this country, in my opinion, because they are making propaganda, pro-Israel videos, despite the history of these people. They are not our allies, as Jayda said. They are very much our enemies.
Over 90 people. These people armed Argentina during the Falklands War, and 255 British servicemen were killed. And Zionist Jewish militant groups, in just 3 years, killed 785 British personnel. Not even the IRA killed that many of our men, and they fought us for 30 years. I'm not saying it's a competition, but if it were, Israel would win hands down. And as that Jewish man pointed out, it was the UK that created their nation in 1948, but he thinks we owe them an eternity of support, despite what they've done to us and to our allies. If you don't know about the USS Liberty, look it up. I'm not even surprised. by what he said, because I know my nation's history. I know what these people think of us. I know what they've done to us. But what I'm sickened by is Tommy Robinson's response or lack thereof. This man that hails himself a great British patriot said nothing as a foreigner told him there's a special place in hell for the UK for turning our backs on the Jewish people. I would have told him in no uncertain terms that the UK is under no obligation to support any foreign nation, and how dare he say we have a special place in hell. But instead, Tommy grovelled. No, sir.
Shocking,
It's the British establishment. It's not the British people. We love Israel. I promise. Please don't condemn us to hell. It's as pathetic as it is false. Because Tommy Robinson does not speak for the British people. We don't all love Israel, nor are we under any obligation to do so. And that goes for British citizens, our nation as a whole, including the establishment, whom I'm no friend of. But even if you are a Brit that supports Israel, do you actually believe that people in your family, your friends, your colleagues, your fellow countrymen deserve to burn in hell for eternity if we don't support Israel? See, Tommy had an opportunity here to defend his nation, but instead he agreed with him and nodded and then grovelled.
And then they turned on us.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
They turned on us, man. And therefore they have a special place in hell.
And it reminded me actually of last year when Tommy mocked the 3 British veterans
that was disgusting
whilst they were trying to deliver aid to starving Palestinians. And that includes Christians and little children. Those veterans didn't join Hamas. They didn't go out to fight the IDF. They weren't mercenaries. These were men that served our country. And then, like so many ex-servicemen, they went on to provide security for organizations that go into war-torn places and deliver aid to innocent people that are just caught in the middle of war. Just like our grandparents or parents were caught in the middle of World War II. But it seems like Tommy is so obsessed with defending Israel that he's literally willing to throw his own people under the bus and mock and jeer and laugh when they are killed by the IDF. If Tommy Robinson's willing to allow himself to be passed around a load of foreigners who are humiliating and berating him publicly, then that's down to him. But I speak as a true British Christian nationalist when I say our eternal salvation does not depend on us supporting Israel or any other foreign nation. And no hate-filled foreigner with a superiority complex has the power to condemn my nation and my people to burn in hell.
Well, that was absolutely fantastic work from. So I got something to turn this video on. That was absolutely fantastic work from Jayda. I'm going to add it to the show now. Welcome to the show, Jayda. How are you? Oh, sorry, I'm Mike. Sorry. I know. How are you? We're me old local chum. How are you?
Yeah, no, I'm good, thanks. I'm good.
SE23, baby. Yes,
I
South
know.
London.
Those are the days.
Before we talk shop, right? I'm going to have to bestow you some really sad news. Okay, I want you. Okay. You might have to. Have you got any tissues at hand or any a hanky?
I'll try and firm it. Let's see. It depends on how bad this is. Don't tell me Tommy's coming home, please.
No, it's worse than that, right?
All right. Okay.
Our local pub, the Capital, has closed.
No,
permanently.
You're joking.
It's the Weatherspoons or Forest Hill is no more.
The Spoons days are over. When did this happen?
The glory day. I don't know. The glory days. I almost crashed the car as I was driving by when I saw it all boarded up, and I just thought, man, the good times. The good times are over.
That's the end of an era, right there. Gone.
It is. It was basically a central hub of Forest Hill.
It was.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So obviously, like, me and Jayda, I think we're the same age, and amazingly, we never bumped into each other back in the day, and that was our. Well, I don't know about you. You probably didn't go in there as much as me, I imagine, but it was the local Spoons pub. Basically, it was like the unofficial sixth form student bar, because back in those days, where you can just walk into the school uniform, still get served, right? The good old days. And yeah, but yeah, it's gone. But anyway, enough of that. Jayda, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. And thanks for having me on. It's nice to see you after all this time.
Yeah, it is.
Have you been?
Yeah, I've been all right. Still doing life on the road, basically.
Good.
Going from one town to another, like going there, you know, solving crimes, you know, saving the town from the local mafia or whatever they are, you know, and
As you do.
They're riding off in my van in the sunset to the next town.
All in a day's work. That's what we like.
Every day. It's like Kung Fu. Remember that show Kung Fu? It's basically that, or the A-Team. So anyway, Jayda, yeah. So that obviously this is not UNN. This is not Unity News Network. This is unprecedented TV. I'm not sure you've probably been on the show before, but if you don't mind, just quickly, we've got about almost 400 people watching. In case some people don't know, the few people who don't know who you are, why don't you just briefly introduce yourself?
Oh gosh. Okay. I'm Jayda Fransen. I am the founder of the Christian Nationalist Party. People who might be thinking she looks familiar from a long time ago may have seen me involved in some political activism over the years. Don't know where your audience are based, but maybe your American audience might remember the whole Trump retweet saga and then the stint in jail and all of the stuff that went on from there. So, but yeah, I'm just out here trying to defend Christendom now. So it's all good fun.
No, you made that video. I happened to see it earlier today, and I thought that was the one I just played. I thought was an absolutely fantastic video. It's only just over 5 minutes long, and I think it perfectly captured the reason why there's a lot of Tommy supporters who can't seem to understand why there are people like us who are criticizing his state-paid visit to Israel. And I keep saying that this guy is, although he dresses himself up, he puts on the character of being this patriot, and you know, when he's not wearing a Israel flag, that is, you know, he's wearing usually a UK flag or a St. George's flag. And this guy, I often think that is overcompensating for something that he really isn't. In my opinion, he's quite the opposite of a patriot. Instead, he's a paid subversive that is being funded by a foreign government, not directly, but in some forms by their proxies, like Jewish billionaires or Jewish NGOs or Jewish think tanks, whatever it is. The buffers of the state of Israel, in order to, in my opinion, lie and trick the public to thinking that these people are, as in Israel, are our allies. And that video that you made just perfectly summed up, in my opinion, why it is actually the opposite. I mean, would you agree with that? And what's your take on what's going wrong right now with this Tel Aviv Steve's visit to a foreign country, basically on behalf of a foreign government?
Well, I agree entirely, and thank you. I don't like listening to my own voice, so I caught the end of the video. But no, I was quite glad to see that people were sharing it about, because what strikes me as really strange is that a lot of people don't know that about Israel, and there's far more. I had to kind of condense it into a reasonable length rant, but there's a huge amount more that I could have gone into, but those are just direct assaults on us as a nation and as a people. And even if you move all of that aside, the history aside, if we just isolate what's going on at the moment, you mentioned that Leo Kearse is out in Israel now, and there's a number of other people that are out there, and I saw there's some other chaps. And look, that Kearse guy is actually quite a strange one, because I didn't know who he was. A few years ago, I said I'll stand in an election against Nicola Sturgeon in her constituency, and I'll do it just so that I can stick it on her, because she's a Marxist. She's destroying Scotland. And look, to be fair, you know, I've stood in quite a few elections over the years, but I've always been very upfront about my feelings about politics, and that is, I don't believe that this battle can be won at the ballot box. But I do believe in pressure. I believe in sometimes you have to throw things into the public domain, into people's faces for them to take notice of it. And so I stood purely on a ticket of, I'm just going to stick it on her. I'm going to confront her. I'm going to ask her why she's destroying Scotland. And I did that, actually. It was quite funny. It was a big confrontation. It was in all the papers. And it was like, job done, good. But I said, you know, we're not going to get any votes. This woman has completely flooded her constituency with immigrants and hostile, like Republicans who absolutely hate the Brits. So we're never going to get any votes, but it's not about that. So anyway, that was that. The first time I ever heard of that guy was he also stood in the elections in Scotland, and he ran his entire campaign video about me, saying she's a racist, she's a bigot. And then someone said to me like a couple of years ago, or maybe a year ago, do you know that that guy that was obsessively ranting about you in his election campaign video, like he could have spoken about anything, but he decided to dedicate the whole video, I think it's still on YouTube if anyone's interested, to the fact that I'm a racist. And then he pops up on GB News, and now he's popped up in Israel. And if there's ever a sure sign that these people are subversive shills that are in this for the grift, that ought to be it. Because how do you go from absolutely despising someone who's on the right wing to suddenly being this right-wing conservative talking heads? It doesn't compute. Like, it would be like me coming out tomorrow and saying I'm a communist. It's just so unrealistic. So anyway, I digress somewhat. But the fact that all of these people are in Israel.
Yeah, this is some of them here. I mean, this is just some of them. There's more. I mean, like, you got Liam Tuff there. Liam Tuff yesterday or the day before made a video because I think that the criticisms of people noticing what we're talking about is starting to kind of reach mass effect in a way that a lot of people are starting to ask questions about really the loyalty of these people, because why all of a sudden are all of these individuals out there, especially after the recent news that Israel are paying at least $7,000. I mean, we're only saying that's probably only very conservative. Like the amount of videos that Tommy has produced over the last couple of weeks, it seems to be a video every day, if not two a day, of these pro-propaganda. The worst one he's made, in my opinion, where is it? The worst one he's made is justifying, where is it? Is justifying the illegal occupation. They even state in the video that it's an illegal occupation because they can't really lie that much. This is it here. He's gone to what's being called settlers, right? This is actually, I said, this is actually the worst so far of all of Tommy Talmud's recent paid propaganda video for Israel. Tommy is shilling illegal settler occupation of the West Bank, which is not under the authority of Israel. We know the Israel government via the IDF are aiding these settlers. This is by all definition a war crime, and why the UN has condemned it. If you are against migration, if you are against mass migration in the UK, then you should be against this occupation. If people aren't aware, Israel are currently responsible for the mass migration into Europe. They bombed the Arab lands, displaced the people, and even helped migrants set off to Europe via NGOs like Israel Aid, only then to softly invade lands via settler colonies. This is known as the Greater Israel Project. People like Tommy, Liam Tufts, and Alec Phillips, who are all currently in Israel at present, are paid by Israel to make sure you never connect the final dots and instead make paid Israel propaganda video and posts. This is what makes them traitors to the West. I mean, that video that was produced yesterday or the day before, where he's basically justifying this illegal, they're calling it settling, settlers and all of this, but it's a soft invasion. And
Sean,
this is go on.
Do you know what I saw the other day? Yesterday, I think it was. Liam Tufts made a video similar, right? And these people are daft. I mean, look, you have to just say it, because then we're not talking about the sharpest knives in the drawer here. We are talking about people that are just will do anything, will perform for money, basically, which is why Tommy's allowing himself to be passed around and berated in public.
They're YouTube only fan people. They're like political prostitutes, essentially.
They are.
They're being paid to make these videos. Go on.
Tufts was in this kibbutz, right? I just thought this is ridiculous. I mean, it would be funny if it weren't for the fact that these are real people. He's in this kibbutz saying where the October 7th happened, and he said, I'm in this kibbutz and I'm looking around and I'm thinking, look at all of these family homes. These would have been peaceful family homes, and now look at it, it's destroyed. And I just thought, does this man understand what a kibbutz is? Does he understand the irony of what he is saying? Yeah, at one point they were peaceful family homes of Palestinians until the Israelis, at the behest of the British government saying, go ahead, do it, ran hundreds of thousands of Palestinians out of their own land. So it's like the irony of what these people are saying is actually suggesting that a kibbutz is like this peaceful, tranquil community, like some village in England that's been set upon by these illegal immigrants coming in off the dinghies. Now, that's what we're talking about here. Yeah, at one point, it would have been peacefully occupied by Palestinians who have been there for thousands of years and whose country has remained an actual nation for 2,000 years longer than Israel has existed. So you're not dealing with people that even have the most basic grasp of history and geopolitics. They are just YouTube prostitutes, as you quite rightly pointed out. It's a good phrase really to coin for them.
It's quite a difficult thing to sort of work out. I do believe that some of them, especially Tommy, is one of these people. I don't know about Liam Tupp. I don't know if they generally are, very duplicitous, they're basically lying to the people and based on it, or is it that they have drunken the Kool-Aid and they genuinely believe what they're saying? Because a lot of these people, especially like I said earlier, that I've been debating. I used to be very much I used to be a fan of people like Carl Benjamin and Saga and all these sort of people. And then you realize that these people are just they're just academic idiots, basically. They're morons, essentially. And you realize that they are, it's not that they're lying to the people, it's that, like I said, they've drunken the Kool-Aid and they genuinely believe all of this propaganda. And that's what it is, propaganda. You're speaking to people who have been indoctrinated or who've been conditioned to believe this sort of stuff. And I think a reason, why do we care what's going on in the Middle East? Why does it matter? Why are you constantly criticizing Tommy and all of that? Is it because you're jealous? You usually get these kind of responses, and it's like, no, because this generally affects our country. It affects Europe, and it affects most of the West as well. It's like one example here. I sort of did a little bit of internet, investigating almost, because someone said to me, "Oh, do you know about the humanitarian ship called the Ocean Viking?" And I said no. And I did a little bit of, he said, just look into it. And I did a little bit of like research into it. And this is just one example, right? Just one. And there is many other examples of ships like this, or think tanks, or NGOs, or humanitarian organizations, charities, etc., that are doing this all right now in live time. And they are facilitating the exporting of mostly Muslim, but not always, but mostly Muslim people that are coming from the Middle East, and they are transporting them, importing them into Europe, right? So this is just one particular thing. The humanitarian refugee aid ship Ocean Viking has been aiding migrants from Syria, Egypt, Pakistan, and more. It has been noted on multiple occasions the vessel often loses refugees once they arrive in Europe. A quick background check into how Ocean King is funded. Its biggest donor comes from Rolf Kuchin, I think I'm saying that right, via the district of Lundberg in Germany, where Kuchin sits as administrator. So if you just look into just a sort of brief little research into this, is that obviously you've got some stories here from the past that say half the children of humanitarian ship Ocean Viking have fled French centres. And when they say children, I imagine these are people who are claiming to be a certain age, but really they're of adult age. Some 26 of 44 unaccompanied youngsters have escaped the facilities made available to them, authorities aid. This is another story. Migrant advocates expressed belief that lamented that it took weeks to find a harbour for the ship as Italy refused to let it dock because of its history. On Friday, they vowed to send their vessels back to the Mediterranean to save others from destruction. Ocean King disembarked its passengers at the Toulon port, is it? People from Eritrea, wherever that is, Egypt, Syria, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and other nations, including 44 unaccompanied minors and children. Where is it? And this is their biggest funder is one of their biggest international federation of Red Cross and Red Crescent societies, right? So this is again a charity that is, it gets the charity status, but you look into it, it's very dodgy. Operates as a US, where is it? One of its biggest funders is where is it? Received significant financial support from various sources, including public and notably the District of Limburg in Germany has been a major donor, pledging up to double donation received for a maximum of 100,000 euros. And this is the guy who runs, who's currently the administrator of that District of Limburg. And if you look into his early life, he is a Jewish individual, obviously. Which it always seems now that, I mean, it seems that there seems to be a pattern emerging, and this is where the whole people are noticing sort of stuff, is that if this was a Muslim, for example, and all of these connections led to Muslim individuals, I can guarantee you people like Tommy and Leo Kears and Liam Tufts and all that, they would make that very, very, they would highlight that fact if that was the case.
Well, right? Something interesting happened, didn't it? Because Tommy Robinson has seen, look, Tommy Robinson is on a dead-end road. I believe this is the beginning of the end. This final Israel tour, I think, is the beginning of the end for Tommy Robinson. Tommy Robinson has been grifting off of this movement for so long. I actually think now, you know, there's no honor with the thief, and he is a thief. I mean, he's obtained funds by deception, and over the years has grifted and subverted a movement, and that has actually caused immense harm to our nation. If he had any ounce of decency, he would just take all of his ill-gotten gains and leave. Just leave everyone else to it, because nationalism has progressed, and this old-school civic nationalism that he's still trying to push, and this pro-Israel Zionist nationalism, people are seeing through it. What he tried to do the other day, which was an interesting development, was he tried to appeal to the ethno-nationalists who are seeing through a lot of his pro-Israel propaganda. And this was just before he went out to Israel. And he put a video out saying that it isn't all Jews that are responsible for mass immigration into Europe. However, it's the liberal Jews that run all of the NGOs, much like the guy that you just pointed out there, every single time.
He let the cat out of the bag, didn't he? He let the cat out of the bag.
He took the lid off. Right. So this is the thing. His handlers are having an absolute meltdown, because what he said was the replacement of European people is not being orchestrated by all Jews. It's just the elite left-wing Jews. Wow. Who do you think, Mr. Robinson, is making these payments into your account? Where do you think these NGOs? I mean, and it was so foolish, because he did two things. The first, which was the most crazy, was he acknowledged what he has accused us all for years of being a conspiracy. Right? He has maintained for nearly 2 decades now that he's been involved in activism that the replacement of the European people, the replacement of us, is a right-wing conspiracy theory, and that everyone pushing it is just a neo-Nazi, racist, bigot, xenophobic, anti-Semite. And so all of a sudden, he's acknowledged, first and foremost, actually, yeah, there is an agenda, a replacement agenda, but it's not all Jews, it's just the elite Jews. This was almost suicidal for him to do that and then go out to Israel, because you can imagine they're pulling their hair out. And these people, they will not forget that. They cannot have that. So what he was trying to do was sort of reach out to the ever ethno-leaning right-wing community who are almost done with him. Like, nationalism has progressed. I've been pushing the ethno-nationalism line for well over a decade, but it hasn't been palatable, which is why they locked me up and stripped my assets and all the rest of it. But I thought, just keep going, because actually people will realize it is the only form of nationalism that makes sense. And we're at that point now. The Overton window has shifted. The narrative has shifted. And so he's trying desperately to stay relevant. But he can't rebrand like some of these other right-wing groups are doing. They are completely abandoning civic nationalism and jumping on the FNAT line, which, again, is disingenuous, because I know these people. They've been pushing civic nationalism for years. All of a sudden, it's like, oh, we'll get on that gravy train. But he can't. He cannot, because by doing so, he's selling out his paymasters. And so that was a very interesting development. And I don't think he's in a good position here. I wouldn't want to be him.
Yeah, like I said, I think a lot of people are starting to very much ask questions. I mean, like I said, the fact that all of these other influencers are currently out there at the same time as well, it is just, you know, what's going on here? you know what I mean? Like,
Well, take out the word Israel and swap it for China. That's the litmus test here. If we said, because people are saying, "Oh, you're just anti-Semitic." Okay, fine. Let's just do a little exercise for the fun of it. Let's just say that we replace the word Israel for the word China. The Chinese government have paid for several like well-followed right-wing, exactly, or Russia, right-wing conservative talking heads to go on an all-expenses-paid tour of China or Russia to promote China or Russia, all expenses paid by the government. And the video that Tufts put out was so disingenuous because he put a video out saying, basically, I'm asking a question of people. He said, if I was to go to Spain and report on bullfighting, would you say that I'm putting Spain first? Well, this is disingenuous because that is not a fair comparison. A fair comparison would be if I went to Spain at an all expenses paid trip to Spain at the cost of the Spanish government in order to tour at the cost of the Spanish government to tour the country and promote the country and promote the country's religion and promote the country's current political line, that would be more aligned with what he's doing in Israel. He's not in Israel talking about some obscure sport that they all play, like bullfighting in Spain. He's gone out specifically to promote the nation to the people in his home country. And so if we said all of these influencers are out in China being paid by the Chinese government to tour China and promote China to British people back home, what would we call that? You know, there's a word for that. And we used to do something to people that do things like that. But it's like, how obvious is this? I don't know how else to put it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the people are really starting to ask questions here. And I'm trying to think, will Tommy even, because apparently he's going to Poland next, I hear. I don't know how true that is, but he's going to Poland next. And I don't know if Tommy, I don't think he's going to come back to England for a while. I'll be surprised if he does come back because I think I see people in the comments saying people will forget. And unfortunately, there is a lot of truth in that. We seem to have this goldfish kind of memory now. Yeah. The news cycle, 24-hour news cycle, something else will come along and then it will just be forgotten. I mean, people asked earlier, has Tommy licked the wall in the comments? I think he's already done it. I think he already done it like one of his previous visits. But he's been to Israel before, I believe, and I think he did.
Yeah, that video you played of mine, he's at the wall with the little hat on, licking the wall. He's not licking the wall in the picture, but he didn't go to the wall and not lick it. You know that. So he's been there, done that. That was years ago. That was a long, long time ago. I mean, gosh, that might even be 10 years ago. This isn't some new thing, but people are have such, and respectfully, people do have very short memories, and I kind of forgive them because we do live in an age that isn't really real. Everything's online. Everything's like the latest thing to distract you. But mature nationalists, but like mature nationalists ought to have seen through that as an agenda in itself. You know, it was COVID, then it was monkeypox, then it was Russia, then it was Israel, and it's like constantly something to distract us. And so, because people have said to me, like, I've been quite outspoken about Robinson over the past few years since I've gone back on social media. I was banned from social media for like 6.5 years, and then Twitter allowed me back on. And my account hasn't really grown because I haven't shilled for Israel. I never will, and I've called out these shills. And people have said to me, like, why do you bother? And it isn't. I mean, you know, I know you said earlier about people kind of leveling that. Is it jealousy or what is it? Or is it, you know, a woman scorned or what? I mean, look, I don't have a personal relationship with him. I never have had. I've met him a handful of times throughout my years in activism. But I always knew that he didn't stand for what I stood for. But the reason I think it is so relevant for people to call this out is that on a personal note, I actually don't care what he does. I don't think he's a good character. But the damage that he is doing to the right-wing conservative movement, he has completely bastardized British right-wing politics and activism for the past 15 years because he's been paid by foreigners to do so. And this is just so treacherous. I think people are coming round and the new generation are rejecting the whole Zionist agenda.
A video. Do you know the YouTuber? I can't remember his real name now. But the YouTuber Academic Agent. Do you know that chap? You know that guy?
I don't think so.
He's usually kind of with the Lotus Eater kind of people, and although I've noticed he's kind of distanced himself a bit, because I think he's seeing what we're talking about. He made a video the other day also calling this out. What someone mentioned that mostly football people follow Tommy. What was your? Because one thing I saw was the last week when you had sorry, excuse me, I got a bit of a cold. Sorry. You had the what was it? The Jewish, one of the Israeli football teams that were banned from the Aston Villa game, and you had all of the same old talking head, like the Julia Hartley Brewers was non-stop posted about. Richard Tice also recently went out to Israel. Another guy kissed the wall and everything like that. And you had all of these people. Alex Phillips also currently out in Israel. You had all of them grandstanding and defending. Saying that, it's like 1930s Germany again, that these Jews aren't allowed in the Aston Villa football game. And it's like, I knew, especially like from being from like a Millwall kind of background, I knew that team was essentially the Millwall equivalent, although a lot worse. I'll give credit to the
Millwall's not my team. I'm Palace, but I've got a love for Millwall.
Are like high society compared to those thugs at that Israeli football club, right?
Yeah.
And I knew that. I mean, that's the equivalent of if those people were defending like the actions of a really violent kind of Millwall game. Do you know what I mean? Like it was like almost like the equivalent. Like I said, this Israeli team was far worse, right? It's far worse. And the following, only a few days after that, it came that game. I can't remember because I don't follow football anymore because I can't follow those. I can't swear. I'm not allowed to. I can't follow those sort of people anymore. Footballers. I mean, they're all just paid propagandists as well, basically taking the knee and all that stuff. But excuse me. But I knew that would backfire on them. And then when that happened, when that game was cancelled, then because they all kicked off again, wherever it was, the game had to be cancelled. All of those people, then they even people like Carl, but all of them, they all went silent the next day because they saw that these people, these fans, are genuine. Aston Villa has every right to not have those fans there at their ground.
Yeah. They're known for it. This has been widely reported.
But again, it was an opportunity for all of these culture-friendly talking heads to make a bit of shekel, to make a bit of coin.
They never miss an opportunity to
they never miss a Maya Tusi, or they never miss an opportunity to go, I can make a bit of money here. Like, do you know what I mean? By doing that. And that's that. But excuse me, sorry, I've got a really terrible cough at the moment. What's this? So AA is very entertaining. Is one of the best academics on YouTube. It really can't a few things to see or engage in himself. Yeah, I know. He's starting to see it, and like I said, he's distanced himself from like the Lotus Eaters people and all of that. Where was I going with this? But I was going to say, what was your take on? I don't know if you. So where was it on this? So. Tommy has also made another video about, because I obviously know that you're quite Christian, Jayda. I think to say the least. I know you can quote a lot of scripture and all of this. And I just wanted to know your opinion, like, because my background, I was a Christian. I don't consider myself a Christian anymore. I know that might disappoint you, but I was baptized a Catholic, years ago. But my perspective of it now is that I see, because Christianity is an Abrahamic faith and really does derive from Judaism, I can't see really that Christianity is a separate new covenant. I see it really as an adapted form of Judaism that is basically the Jewish people don't, because it's very Judaism is very elite. You can't just become Judaic just overnight like you can with Islam and Christianity. And I think personally what has happened is that to keep the control of the Gentiles or Goyim, is that they have adapted their form of Judaism and basically tailor-made it for, in this case, Christianity for basically white people. And I see it right now as I see Christianity really as a foreign desert religion, as the equivalent of Islam almost, because you're essentially worshiping a guy in the desert, a brown guy in the desert, which, was Jesus pretty much was. He wasn't white, was he? He was brown, really, if you really think about it, because he was born in that kind of area of the world. Like, what's your take on the whole? What do you think about that? What I've just said? Do you agree with that, or
no, not at all?
Tell us your
No. Well, I mean, respectfully, it's incorrect. But I understand where this opinion comes from, this concern comes from, because we as a nation, especially, have sort of abandoned the ancient Christian faith that built this nation. And so I get it. It's a common misconception. A few things to note is that modern day Jews have absolutely nothing to do with the Jews of the Bible. Very, very, very few people have any link with the Jews of the Bible. They are following a completely alternate set of Jewish scriptures. The Talmudic scriptures have nothing to do with the Jews of the Bible. The Jews of the Bible, the people that came from an area of Judea, that's where that came from. This thing that's been turned into this Talmudic Judaism, which talks about goyim and talks about cattle and says that Jesus is burning in a vat of excrement in hell, that has, I can assure you, absolutely nothing to do with the people or the God of the Bible. But the Jews of the Bible, the Israelite people that God set apart, he did that to say, these are my people, these are the laws that I give them all, and they have to be loyal to me. And if they just honor me as their God, then I will save them and I will keep them my people. And they couldn't. They dishonored God, they rejected, they rebelled against God time and time again until he destroyed Israel in 722 BC. You heard that right. 722 years before Christ, Israel was destroyed as a kingdom, and hasn't existed again until 1948. But what God was doing with the Israelite people was a foreshadowing, and he was saying, look, because he's a gracious God, he's our creator. He said, look, I know that like these humans, they need something tangible to understand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you that, look, if I give you all of these laws to abide by, I will stick with you and you just have to stick with me. That's the covenant. And they couldn't do it and they wouldn't do it. They refused. They kept rebelling and worshiping other gods. And so that was an illustration from God to show, look, I know that you, my creation, my children, you don't have the capability of doing this on your own. And because I'm a gracious God, I'm going to send my only begotten son, Jesus, who is part of the triune God, who was there at the beginning of creation. I'm going to send him into the world to take on human form as a man. And his sins will absolve those of his people. Now, you said earlier, and again, I mean this in Christian love, you said earlier you were a Christian, you're not now. It's not possible to leave. It's not possible to be a blood-washed believer in Christ and leave the faith. Once you're a believer, you're a believer forever. God is holding on to his people. We're not holding on to him. If we were holding on to him, we would let go. Our hands would slip and we'd let go because we're not able. But he's holding on to us. So if you were a Christian, you would have remained one. The Bible says that. If they were of us, they would have remained with us, but they were not of us, so they went out from us. So there's that. But I understand why people are concerned that this Abrahamic faith, which is what they call like Christianity, Judaism, and Islam, they say these Abrahamic faiths, so they lump them all in together and they're all from the desert. And well, yeah, the scriptures originated in that part of the world, but throughout the New Testament, we see the people that were there that witnessed Christ. By the way, just as anecdotally, Jesus is the most documented person in history, and to suggest that so because there are people out there like Muslims, for example, that say Jesus was just a prophet and that he the person that died on the cross wasn't Jesus. Someone did die on the cross, but God whipped Jesus out the way and hid him up in heaven. But there are the most documented person that's ever walked the earth is Jesus Christ, and there are people that testify to being witness to this. What they did, they went out into different parts of the world, different continents, including Europe, and they brought the gospel. These are first century, had a direct communication with the Lord, Christians. So, you can say, oh, well, it's a kind of desert ideology, but I mean, none of our lands were ultimately that developed. And contrary to common belief, it doesn't actually concern me if Jesus' skin was slightly darker than mine. Actually, writings about him suggest that he was fair. But I don't get hung up on that because I actually don't think it's relevant. I mean, I'm not saying that he's a sub-Saharan or that he looked like a Pakistani, but I don't know what he looked like. He's God. It doesn't matter. What matters is the faith actually provides for all of the things that I believe because of the faith, like nationalism. You know, Christianity, unlike these other faiths, is specific. It says that God created respective nations for respective peoples and set the boundaries thereof. That, for me, explains why people in Nigeria look so different to me. I don't believe it's a coincidence or an accident or climate that people in Nigeria just got darker and darker and darker over the years. I don't believe that. And so, but the worry about the Abrahamic religion link and the modern day Jews are nothing to do with those biblical people. These are, you know, they're no different to Hindus, to Sikhs, to Muslims. They are anti-Christ. They are anti-God. They don't worship the God of the Bible. And their faith has absolutely nothing to do with Christianity. And what God, I'll just finally, because you mentioned the new covenant, what God did with the new covenant is he said, he was trying to demonstrate in the scriptures by keeping the Israelite people, you mentioned them being like an elite group, by keeping them an elite group of his people, what he was demonstrating is, I do have an elite group of people. They're not to say that now, and he said that elite group includes the lowliest of the lowly, the homeless person, the prostitute, the tax collector, the gambler. We're not talking about elite in modern day terms, like the Farage, or, you know, we're talking about that elite. We're talking about a chosen people, the actual chosen people. And by keeping the Israelite people in this distinct group, what he was demonstrating is, in the future, when the new covenant arrives, which it did with Christ, this group won't be an elite group of people that keep to the law and stay among their own people and say, you know, everybody else is under me and I despise them. It will be people that actually are coming from a place of love. Yes, we have separate identities, as in ethnically, but this group, the new group under the new covenant, welcomes in the lowliest to the highest. It doesn't matter. You could be a king with all the riches of the world, or living on the street, addicted to heroin, you know, prostitute. It doesn't matter. If the Lord brings you into his people, then you are his. And the new covenant it opened up the availability to come into God's kingdom to people outside of the people of Judea, that circle. And so he said, no longer is there Jew and Gentile. That is broken in Christ. You are now one in Christ. So their elite group that they're still maintaining is an offense to Christians and to the Lord. And that's why a lot of people, I understand their reservations about Christianity, but when you read the scriptures and you understand the you know, even the genealogy, you ought to understand these people are nothing to do with us. And this Christian Zionism that's been perpetrated by the Schofield Reference Bible, mainly in America, is a brand new concept, really, when you consider how long it's existed. No one was talking about
1913, isn't it? That it was.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
you know what's funny about that 1913 year is possibly one of the worst years in humanity. Not only had that Schofield Bible, which is basically just Zionist, a Zionist revision of the Bible. You also had the creation of the Federal Reserve in America. You had the creation of the income tax in America as well. And it's one year previous to before World War I started. You know, it's like this really kind of horrible year that existed. It's just funny. I was watching a video just the other day, and it was like there was a guy. I might put it on actually. The guy, he was an expert in the in biblical studies and all this, and he said that this is a Bible from 1905, and since 1913, this great review. People don't know the Schofield Bible is basically like a how would you describe it? It's basically like a Bible for dummies, for new kind of clergymen.
Well, no. So I'll tell you what it's like, right? I have a Bible here. So it's like this Bible. If you open it up, it's got the scriptures inside, right? So what have we opened up? We've opened up on Chronicles. So if this were a Schofield Reference Bible, approximately like that portion of the page, this amount would be the scriptures that you're reading here, which is the holy, inerrant, infallible word of God. But this amount here was a commentary. And this commentary basically was man-made. Obviously, it was nothing to do with the scriptures, and it completely bastardized the scriptures. And it said, I'm paraphrasing and I'm condensing this graphically, but it basically said everybody has to worship modern day Talmudic Jews and Israel, which actually didn't even exist then, but the Jewish people, and they have to want a reinstatement of the nation of Israel and a third temple being built, even though Jesus said, I am the temple. He destroyed the temple and said, it is finished. He is the temple. There will be no new
that's
temple
actually
built.
what I want. This is actually why I brought up this entire talking point, because I want to talk to you about. Tommy just made a video about the third temple, but go on, continue.
Oh, is it? Yeah. So I mean, that, like, if you consider how ludicrous that would be, that this portion, like, it's literally that size of every page, they're called footnotes, and the footnotes are just man-made BS by extreme Zionists to promote a Zionist agenda.
So yeah, so this is like a 2-minute video. This is basically a guy and a biblical scholar that has an old Bible, pre-Schofield, pre-1913, and it's quite interesting. You watch this, and I imagine a lot of Judaic people and Judaic Christians will also just hit the roof of this.
Every Christian family had a Bible like this, and they put their family genealogy, the weddings, baptisms and burials. It was all put inside the Bible, and you passed it down generation to generation. This particular Bible was published in 1905. Now, the reason I brought it out is that I want to show a map that's in this Bible. Now, mind you, the Schofield Bible was not published until 1913.
Right.
And I have in my office an original 1913 Schofield, which was the introduction of the Zionist heresies about a future state of Israel and separating the church from Israel and all that rapture stuff. That's where it came from. This is a 1905 Bible.
Pre-Schofield.
Pre-Schofield, with no Schofield notes in it. So you open it up, and this is on page 13. I mean, this thing's big. I want to show you. Here is a map of the Holy Land. And it says, what?
Oh, Palestine of the Holy Land.
They misspelled Israel.
No.
Palestine.
Palestine.
Huh.
And all these Christian Zionists that tell me, Rick, there's never been a Palestine.
All right, so here's a still.
There it is.
Let's zoom in and show you here.
Yeah. So, yeah, you hear these people like John Hagee, there's never been a Palestine. Well, look at this Bible map from 1905.
And most Bibles,
yes,
from then had a map of Palestine.
And Palestine is in the Bible itself, in the Old Testament. So we're showing you this just because I'm trying to break through the propaganda, the confusion, the lies that the Zionists have implanted in millions of minds of Christians in America, and told them there's never been a place called Palestine.
But I have a map, Rick.
What do you think of that, Jayda? Do you agree with that particular video?
Look, I've seen that video. It's absolutely true. I actually have that exact Bible in my living room. But
the 1905 one?
Yeah, I have a really old edition that's been passed along. And but let me just say something, right? These Schofield Bibles, don't think that all of that nonsense is in all of our Bibles. There are certain Schofield Bibles that a lot of people in America have, but most of us don't read that. Throughout Europe, people don't even really know about this dispensationalism nonsense. But this thing that he's saying about Israel, so these are the maps in my Bible, which is obviously, this is a modern Bible, but this Bible here is showing the time, the Holy Land at the time of the kings, right? And that's when there were two separate nations. So there was Israel, and then you can see there, this the Philistines, Philistia, which was the old name for Palestine, right? I'm not very good at this, the QVC stuff, right? And then there's Judah. And then if you look at the time of the Lord's ministry, at which point Israel had been destroyed, Israel is not there. Now you can see, sorry, that's the wrong map. This side. Let me do it. That one now. right? So there is no Israel at the time of the Lord's ministry. Israel as a kingdom existed for about the same time, actually. It was created at the same time as Palestine, and then it was destroyed in 722 BC. And then shortly thereafter, within about 150 years, the southern nation of Judea, you can see there that it's split into two. You have the kingdom of Israel, the kingdom of Judea. Israel went first, and then Judea went second. And after that, the so-called Israel that they're looking at now, this landmass, it was no more. And so, yeah, look, but people know this. I mean, Christians know this because we know our Bible. We know that that land was, Palestine is a Romanized word for Philistia. And what someone actually in your comments said about the fact that Jacob's name was given the name Israel. He's a person, not a nation. It was a person. Jacob was called Israel by the Lord, but there was a kingdom of Israel, and there was the kingdom of Judea, and both of them were destroyed. The Babylonian exile, which happened in 730, I think, something like that. 532, I think, was like 150 years after the destruction of the nation of Israel. They haven't existed for like 2,000 years, and so the purpose, the propaganda in the Schofield Reference Bible was to reinstate Israel as a nation, right? So to carve up Palestine and give it to these people that are calling themselves Jews, who are all basically, most of them are like Ashken, they're like from the steppes of Russia, the Khazars, and then once they've got that, they say they want to build a third temple and sacrifice a load of animals whilst Jesus, they say they're going to do this whilst Jesus is apparently reigning on the earth, which is the most abhorrent heresy that you've ever heard. And so that was the motivation for like the US presidents that we've seen throughout history and even now to push for this Zionism, because actually a lot of Americans, God bless them, have been completely subverted with this heresy, and it's wicked.
This is why, Jayda, I'm not atheist. I'm spiritual, not religious, if that makes any sense. Like, I still think that there is a higher power. I think that there is more to this world than meets the eye. I do think that when you die, that perhaps your conscience goes somewhere else. I don't know, right? The soul, but I just don't accept the vision, the template that what is essentially Jewish people have presented to you. That's what I don't like.
Listening to them?
Sorry?
Listen, why are you listening to them? You're a Christian. You're in a Christian nation.
Yeah, I know it's difficult. You're listening to them. They have presented you because if you look at everything, like if you removed Jewishness from Christianity, you just wouldn't have Christianity. It wouldn't exist without it.
Of course you would. What do you mean Jewishness? Do you mean the people that came from the land of Judea, or do you mean modern day Talmudic Jews?
I'm talking about Jesus. I'm talking about Jesus, all of his apostles. I'm talking about like how the New Testament references the Old Testament.
Jesus was God. Times. Yeah, of course, but again, like as I've explained, these people are nothing to do with these Talmudic Jews who say that the white man is inferior and that it's okay to. I mean, their scriptures actually are so graphic. They're akin to a lot of the scriptures that people quote from the Quran about taking sex slaves, molesting women and children. I mean, you know, they're Talmudic scriptures. That's nothing to do with Christianity. Absolutely nothing. The fact is, the people from that line of Judea are not linked with Talmudic Jews. And the heresy, this is where I think a lot of it's gone on, is that the heresy of dispensationalism, which has been pushed by the Schofield Reference Bible, which has infiltrated millions of churches and minds throughout America and wider into the world now, is that actually listen, this is the greatest heresy of it. What dispensationalism does is it provides two routes of salvation. Now, I know you're not a Christian, but if you humor me for a minute, the whole premise of Christianity is that God created us. If we put our faith in Jesus Christ, whom he sent into the world to die on the cross and take on the sins of every single one of us, every sin that we've ever committed, we're ever going to, every single person that's ever existed and ever will, Jesus bore those for his people, so that we can, because God is a righteous God. So when something bad happens, God doesn't just turn a blind eye and ignore it. there has to be a price paid. The price was paid on the cross, rather than us paying the price of going to hell, which is what we deserve because we're terrible people, right? All of us, including me, I'm the worst. Jesus, the God-man, paid that price. And that means that we can spend an eternity with God. That is the route of salvation. The only route of salvation is faith in Jesus Christ if you want to spend eternity with the Lord. If you're not bothered, then you're not one of his people anyway. So you're not going to spend eternity with the Lord. But the point of dispensationalism is they create basically a second route of salvation where they say, no, the Jewish people don't have to respect God, don't have to respect Jesus, but they are all saved because they're elite. This is as demonic as Talmudic Judaism. Zionism, Christian Zionism, which is in the Schofield Reference Bible, is as demonic. It has nothing to do with our faith. These people are trying to subvert our faith. And it saddens me when I hear people say, I don't want to listen to a load of Jews, because I get it. And that's why I say, why would you listen to a load of Jews? And people say, well, like you said, well, you are. No, that we're not dealing with the same entity here. Like, we're absolutely not. And, you know, anyone who's interested, I mean, we have a lot of sermons and services and content on the Christian Nationalist Party that people can look at. But I would urge people not to go down the line of rejecting Christianity, because these people have bastardized it. They've also bastardized the right wing. They hijack everything. They've told you that there are the Talmud says there are multiple genders. That's where the LGBT agenda comes from. These people pushing demonic agendas on us and turning us away as a nation from our faith, which is, you know, what built our nation. So don't listen to these people.
Sorry, I was muted there. Yeah, so I'm just getting the website up onto your party, just so if people want to, if they're interested in what you're saying. So the reason why I brought this up, Jayda, was I'll put the link in a second. I brought this up because I saw our good friend Tommy. He has made just a video earlier today going on about, and I wanted to get your opinion on this. Obviously, I know you being a Christian. So what is your? I heard you say about the third temple before. So at the moment, Tommy is making yet another kind of propaganda video for the state of Israel and Judaism, I think, personally, in general. But I said, Tommy making more propaganda videos for the foreign government. He must be making millions at this point. And the reason why... so basically, he made a video saying, oh, isn't it terrible when there are... I think he said something like there are 13 or 14 entrances for the third temple at the moment, or what it's known as. The rock? Is it, what is it called? That mosque? It's a mosque at the moment.
The Alaska Mosque.
Alaska Mosque, yeah, and it's called another name. There's something of the rock or whatever. Yeah. And the Temple of Muhammad or something.
So he was at the Al-Aqsa Mosque last week pretending to be a Muslim to try and gain entry at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and they said, no, you're not coming in.
So
I don't see this because he's blocked me because he's a coward. But is he now talking about the third temple?
So he's there, and he's gone in with a group. This is where I got that screenshot of Leo Kier. Is that he has gone in with a small group of Israelis, and they say there are, I think there were 14. He said there were 14 or 13 entrances, and only one is permitted for non-Muslim people. Right, because it's currently a mosque at the moment, and I'm very interested in Judaic prophecy. Because I think a lot of the Judaic prophecies is basically what motivates the state of Israel, even though they claim that Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, are secular people, and the minister and all of the government is a secular government, as in, i.e., it's like like an agnostic kind of government where they're not really religious, or some are atheists, some are, whatever. They claim it's not led by religious tendencies. However, I think that's not actually true. I think a lot of the Judaic prophecies are actually, they very much guide even Benjamin Netanyahu and others. And there is this belief, again, the prophecy is, you correct me if I'm wrong, Jed, you probably know more than me on this matter, is that the third temple must be rebuilt, as in the mosque. The thing that is currently a mosque must be basically demolished and rebuilt as a Jewish temple. And then they believe that their Moshiach, which is their version of the Torah God, basically, will return. Is that correct? What's the actual? Do you know exactly?
Well, that's what they believe. That's what they believe. again, let me just be very clear here. This is absolutely nothing to do with Christianity, including the Old Testament. When I say Christianity, I'm not like ignoring Old Testament prophecy. I'm not ignoring what the Old Testament scriptures say. They are incorporated into Christianity. They were a foreshadowing of the coming of Christ, the coming of the Messiah, and the new covenant. So I'm not saying that as in I'm separating this book. Nowhere in this book does it talk about a third temple, the reestablishment of a nation state of Israel, and worshipping false gods. In fact, the book says that there are going to be people that are going to come and spread heresies and try and deceive the believers, but Jesus is going to come and destroy. So, but what their heresy, this is what they say. They say they're going to rebuild the temple, which Jesus destroyed in 70 AD. So Jesus prophesied when he was on the earth. He said, his apostle said to him, Lord, look at the temple. Isn't it grand and isn't it beautiful? And he said, I'm telling you that will not stand. No stone of that temple will stand. And his prophecy was fulfilled in 70 AD. He destroyed the second and final temple. There will be no third temple according to Christianity. The Talmudic Jews believe that they're going to build a third temple, and the Zionists are pushing this. They're not real Christians, by the way. They say they're going to build a third temple. The Jews are going to be God's chosen people in that temple. They're going to sacrifice red heifers and goats on the altar like they used to do in the Old Testament days as a sacrifice to God. Jesus is the final sacrifice. Jesus doesn't need them sacrificing animals. He is the sacrificial lamb. This would be extraordinarily offensive for God to come down to earth as his second coming to complete things and bring about the end and celebrate the Jews offering sacrifices of filthy animals. This is what they claim they're going to do. It is a heresy beyond belief. It's got no foot or foundation in Christian scripture. It is nothing to do with Christian scripture. And so anyone selling this to you, I can't say I'm surprised, but the fact that Tommy is pushing this is, if anyone ever needed evidence that this man is bought and paid for, this needs to be it, because this is such a step beyond, and this is why I'm so against him. Is he's not just trying to subvert right-wing nationalism, he's trying to subvert my faith that he thinks nothing of. He thinks nothing of Christianity. He's got no respect for it, no regard for it. This means nothing to him. He's promoting Judaism to British people so that we believe a lie, and God will not be mocked. I'd hate to be him on his day of judgment. I tell you that.
I do agree with what you said there. Like I said, the subversion, it can be quite subtle, but if you're not paying attention, a lot of people are distracted nowadays because they've got, especially with how things are, inflation, they've got a work job, the mother and father have to be out in the house working. They're distracted by their slop on TV, and all of this. Like they don't see the subtlety of the subversion. But once you see it, as I'm sure many of the people watching here now, I've got how many people watching at the moment? It's about almost 700 people watching. Is that a lot of people, I think, that are tuned in here, they can see what he's doing. Some people knew probably that are perhaps waking up to this, and they can see what's going on. But this thing about the third temple, and I've said, and this is not me keeping in mind, I do think there is a massive Islamic problem in this country. I'm definitely not trying to water down that problem. But what I'm saying here is that the reason why the Muslims are being, so his argument in that video is that, isn't it terrible, like with the football thing again, they're discriminating against Jewish people because there's only one entrance for Jewish people, for non-Muslim people, even though there are, 12 entrances or whatever it is. And this thing, I said, the reason why Muslims are being so rightfully protective is because they know it is Jewish prophecy to destroy that mosque. First, in order to rebuild the third temple. Jews go on about rebuilding the third temple all the time. Trump and Vance mentioned it only recently. Only last week they mentioned it. And you have that absolute Zionist Christian nutcase. What's his name? Is it a foreign secretary? Yes, absolute nutter. He is, like, in terms. You could talk about religious extremists. That's definitely one of them. So, of course, the Muslim security is high. Jews have motive to destroy it. It's common sense, not the discrimination of Jews, victimhood tactics that they always claim. So Jews have to go through security. Well, based on the history of Mossad with subversive tactics, I'm not surprised. Jewish people should be grateful these violent Muslims are letting them in the mosque in the first place. It is, after all, a mosque. I mean, the fact that they're letting them in. If these people were so apparently barbaric as they're claiming, right? Because they're obviously in charge of that mosque at the moment. The Islamic people are. That they wouldn't be letting them in at all, would they? I mean, it can't. When you really think about it, it really does kind of make you think. Well, I thought these people are meant to be these savage, like these barbarian, savage people. Why are they actually letting you the courtesy of letting you in the first place? Then, if that's the case.
Yeah, and what you need to do, I would urge Tom. I always urge Tommy's supporters, because he's still got ardent supporters that are like, no, he's just trying to do the right thing. Well, what you need to do when it comes to Tommy, like I said earlier. When I said about swapping the word Israel for China and then looking at it through a different lens, look at this through a different lens. Tommy Robinson's saying how disgusting it is that these Jews can't all pile into this mosque. Okay, well, let's just say that the British government tomorrow became right-wing, conservative, Christian, nationalist, like I am. And they said, for the protection of all Christians in the United Kingdom, there's going to be security on every church and Muslims can't enter. I don't think Tommy Robinson would be campaigning for Muslims to have a right to enter Christian churches. If the British government likewise said that every synagogue in Britain now is going to have a separate entrance so that Muslims can enter through that one, I think Tommy Robinson would say Muslims shouldn't be going into Jewish synagogues at all. Why are they legislating for this? So when you actually look at this in a broader context, and get it, people don't like Muslims. I understand they want to make them, they want to blame them for everything. I understand that. But when you look at it, just flip it to see how reasonable this is. If they were to say no Jews, no Sikhs, no Hindus, no Muslims are able to come into our churches, or churches in Nigeria where Christians are being slaughtered, let's just say that Christians in Nigeria said Muslims aren't allowed in, that would be a good thing. Tommy would praise that. But he's saying that Jews should be allowed into this mosque. So we can't apply it. Like, I saw another example of this the other day. He was talking to a Palestinian and he said to this Palestinian, he's out in occupied Palestine. He said to this guy, "You're Palestinian. How do you feel living here?" And he said, "It's fine." And he said, "What do you think about all the Palestinian people leaving?" And the guy said, "They shouldn't have to leave." And Tommy said, "But why don't the Gulf states and why don't Egypt and Lebanon, why don't they take them?" And the guy said, "Because they shouldn't have to leave their land." He said, "Why should they have to leave?" And he said, "Why should they be driven out of their land? Would you want to be driven out of your land?" And Tommy said, "Well, we are being driven out. You want to see London." And I thought, right, okay. So you've just said to that man, why can't all the Palestinian people leave their land and just go to Egypt? And the man said, "Why should the Palestinian people leave? Would you want to leave?" And Tommy went, "Well, my people are being driven out of their land." And he's not happy about it. So why does he support the Palestinian people being driven out of Gaza if he doesn't support the British people being driven out of London? This is so simple.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is what I said about the video he made about the settlers, is that that's essentially invasion. What he's talking about and what's happening in England and Europe, etc., is basically what they're doing out. Yeah, they're in Palestine, they're ethnic cleansing. Mm-hmm. But he's for that. He's for that when it's in Palestine. Yeah. When it's in, but for some reason it's different. That's why I don't.
Displacing 2 million people, and whether you like it or not, though the Arab nations won't take them, and they will end up in Europe. Yeah. And then he's going to say, stop immigration.
Why would they want to be complicit in a war crime? That's
exactly.
That's how I see it. Why would Jordan and the other surrounding nations? Why would they want to be complicit at that? They're like, no, we're not doing that.
I know. If we were told tomorrow,
there in the first place, and where do those people then end up? Well, they end up here.
We're going to end up here
down at Dover.
Exactly. And it's, it would be like, let's just say, for example, Israel said, right, we're going to invade France and we're going to kick all the French people out of France. If Britain turned around and said, "Oh, don't worry, we'll take them," we're facilitating the ethnic cleansing of the French people from their land. Britain should say, "No, Israel, if you try and drive the people out of France, we're going to fight you with the French. Go back to your own lands." That's what we should be saying. He should be saying to Israel, "We are going to sanction you if you don't stop trying to broaden your borders." But instead, we've got the opposite happening on the British right wing is everybody's kind of normalized because they're brown. It's like, oh, you know, they're Muslims, so everyone, it's easy done. I've been part of this counter-jihad movement years ago for a long time, so I get there's an inherent distrust and hatred of Muslims in the West. And it's the easiest thing to sell, isn't it? Who cares about those Muslims? Who cares about them? You know, why shouldn't they go to Egypt? Barbarians. These people have been living in a cage for the last 75 years. Yeah, it's just.
I know they've had bombings of their land. I mean, like, this is not me trying to be like some Owen Jones kind of or James O'Brien type of figure, but this is reality. This is what I say. If you support Tommy, you are supporting mass migration into the UK because you are supporting the actions of Israel, who are doing those things. They're bombing all of those lands. They're basically carpet bombing them. So eventually, it's only human nature that eventually people give up and they go, do you know what? I'm sick of rebuilding my house or rebuild, you know, as much as I want to be defiant and not leave and be stubborn, you know, in order to the Israeli forces and all of that, right? I can't do this anymore. You know, you would just come to a break. Everyone has their breaking point. And just
they don't even have that option. You know, the guy that
some of them don't. Some of them don't even have that. Yeah.
No, you know the guy, Tommy's new pal, that said to Tommy, there's a special place in hell for the UK.
Yes.
I don't know if you saw, but the video that I posted underneath that is the same guy in an interview saying that the Greater Israel Project, laying it out, and he's asked, the interviewer says to him, you know, what should happen to the Palestinian people? And he said, send them to Spain, send them to Cyprus. He said, send the Palestinian. This is Tommy's new pal that just sat in front of Tommy, looked him in the face and said, there's a special place in hell for the UK. And Tommy just sat there and went, oh, I know. Right? He said, send the Palestinian people, 2.2 million of them, into Europe, and Israel will annex Gaza. That's what he said. So these people that he's breaking bread with and pally and playing nice with, who not only are saying that you and I should go to hell, our whole nation should go to hell, he's also saying, send another 2.2 million refugees who have been bombed and maimed and shelled for years, for decades, who are angry and are extreme, send them into Europe so that we can steal their land. And Tommy Robinson is out there promoting that. So when these people do come to the UK and blow us up because they're angry, you can thank Tommy Robinson for being part of that plan. And that's
he's part of that. Yeah, he's encouraging that. But this is where that phrase. Have you heard of this phrase? There's a lot of rabbis and a lot of Israeli officials say this. Is that they say that Islam is the broom of Israel. Do you ever heard that phrase before?
Yes.
And if you really think about that, Islam is the broom. It's basically saying that Islam is basically the weapon that Israel wields, essentially.
Yes.
What did you think of? Just quickly, obviously, I'm going to let you go shortly, Jay. I know you've been on for a while.
I got an interview at 4, but we're all right.
What was your opinion on the whole Charlie Kirk situation, his assassination? What was your thinking of that?
I didn't really do too much of a deep dive, right? My initial reaction was I posted out and said, people asked me, do I think Charlie Kirk was killed by a trans lone wolf, by an Antifa activist, or by Israel directly? And my response was, they're all one and the same thing. Because it's Israel and those Jewish NGOs that Tommy brought up before he got his wrist slapped. It's those people that are responsible for the LGBTQPZ plus agenda. They're responsible for pushing abortion. They're responsible for infiltrating the education system, the media, social media, Hollywood, the music industry, and subverting it with degeneracy. And so, and the same way that they fund groups like Antifa. And so I didn't really go too far into it. I saw a bit of what Candace Owens was saying, and I'm inclined to believe that I saw that Charlie was asking questions. Charlie and I followed each other online, and I had called him on a couple of points. I had said to him, like, come on, you know, because I knew that he was a Zionist. I knew that he supported Israel, but there are a couple of times I was like, come on, this is a bit too far, you know, in terms of the support for Israel when they were obviously committing war crimes against the Palestinian people. But by and large, I could see Charlie was, and it's come to light now. Charlie was on a bit of a journey, and I was on a journey at some point. You were on a journey at some point. We didn't all know this. Oh, I don't know about you, but I didn't know everything that I know now about Israel and the followers of the Talmud. I was not aware of 10, 15 years ago. We're all on a journey. Thankfully, one of the things, if there's a silver lining, if you care to find one, from this horrible mess, is that Israel have shown themselves up and they've exposed their agenda and their wickedness. And so I do believe that Charlie was on a journey, and he had started to reject, he'd rejected the support of certain Jewish donors because he wasn't willing to overlook, very obvious anomalies. And that video that's circulating of Charlie talking about flying from Tel Aviv to Gaza and it taking 45 minutes in a helicopter, and saying, there must have been a stand down order because the IDF, we're talking about the most manned border in the entire world, and the IDF took 6 or 7 hours to respond. It is nonsense. Israel were complicit in what happened on October the 7th. I said it 2 days before it happened. I put a video out and said, I did a live stream, said, you're not going to like this, but on October the 9th, I said, this is a setup. This is to facilitate ethnic cleansing. So Charlie was on that journey of discovering this, and a bit like Tommy said the other day, he actually went as far as to say, there's a lot of Jewish people running these NGOs, and he was coming from a place of innocence. Actually, I actually respect Charlie Kirk, and we didn't see eye to eye on everything, but I respected him as an activist and as a man, as a Christian. I do think that. I haven't delved down the rabbit hole. I know people are talking about his wife and all sorts of stuff. I'm just, for me,
his wife. That's dog. His whole. What I only came to notice fairly recently is that his wife, her dad, basically her father, is part of like a organization that essentially sells weapons to the Israeli forces.
Okay.
And she was also in one of the beauty pageants that Trump owns many beauty pageant kind of contests and all of that. And then Charlie and her, I can't remember her name now, met
Erica.
in Israel. Yeah, so Erica. They met in Israel. It was basically organized, and it does kind of look like, not fact obviously, but one could say that she was basically, you could almost have to say, a handler to Kirk. Do you know what I mean? Like, very.
I don't actually think that I don't actually think that Charlie necessarily needed a handler as such. I think that his inclination, as is the case with millions, tens of millions of Americans, is their inclination is towards Zionism, because that's, unlike our apostate nation in the UK where we've turned our back on Christianity, most Americans come up through the church. And so they came up through this dispensationalist, heretical version of Christianity without knowing it was a heresy. They'd never known anything different. You imagine if the only book you've ever read has got all these footnotes telling you something completely different. I don't actually think that, I don't fully buy into this conspiracy that, I've heard people say she set him up and all the rest of it. I'm just saying that.
No, I don't believe that, but no. I do think that maybe she was perhaps keeping an eye on him. Maybe. I don't know.
I think that they were both on the same page in terms of they were young kids. They both absolutely ardent supporters of Israel, and he was starting to notice things. I don't know how she felt about his noticing, but for me, the end result, whether it's, in fact, I would go as far as to say the end result, whether it was an Antifa activist, a trans lone wolf, an IDF or a Mossad shooter, or even an Islamic jihadist that had been radicalized because of US bombing and displacement in their lands, all of that points back to Israel. So for me, of course, facts matter, and it matters if someone's a patsy and what have you. But what we need the overall picture that people need to understand is, and this is why I'm so ferociously against the shilling for Israel by these British so-called conservative activists, is that all roads, when it comes to the erosion of our culture and the degradation and the degeneracy in our nations, all roads point back to this strip of land in the Middle East that's inhabited by this group.
But Jayda, but can't you say that about Christianity as well? Like, it always leads back to that same place, in that specific place, or in all of the world.
No, but that place was destroyed.
Geography.
Yeah, well, I know, but this is the point of Christianity. This is the difference, is that Christianity destroyed that place. Jesus said that place is gone. It was destroyed in 70 AD. It was over. And the gospel was taken across the world into Europe. Europe then became the epicenter. Europe became, you look at the Roman Empire and what have you. So the whole point of Christianity was the destruction of that place being this elite, relevant part of the world. That portion of land in the Middle East, apart from the fact that historically it would be nice to go there and see where Jesus walked, but you can go and visit sites in Turkey, you can go and visit sites in Ireland where it's steeped in Christian history. That piece of land has nothing to do with Christianity anymore. Jesus made it very clear his kingdom is not of this world. And so everyone trying to apply relevance to that piece of land are imparting something to Christianity that Jesus said, I'm going to destroy that temple and it's over. The days of these people who denied my God and rebelled against my God, the days of those people are up. It's over. The temple's gone. Forget it. Israel was destroyed like 2,000 years before that happened. These people are clutching onto something that is gone. And it's only really the Zionists that are like Tommy that are out there pretending that this is normality. I can tell you, any Bible-believing Christian will tell you there is zero significance to that part of the world any more than there is to the Northern Ireland. Like, there's no difference. Absolutely no difference. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, that's my little cough button. I know you've got an interview in about 20, another interview in about 20 minutes. What's that on, in case people want to continue watching you? Is it a live interview?
I don't even know, to be honest. There's a chap.
You're such a busy woman.
What did I
say? That's a power woman there for you, where she's got a schedule there. I've got to be on this. I've got to be on that.
It's a chap that's, his name's on Twitter. He's Mario ZNA, but I don't actually. He's an Orthodox Christian. He's Serbian, but I'm not sure what we're broadcasting on. So I'm waiting for a link.
It might be
that's sign of 4. But I don't actually know what that is.
Like me, all the time. But there you go. But Jayda, you've been fantastic. It's been really fascinating conversing with you. This is your website.
That's not me, by the way. No, that's nothing to do with us.
This is not
don't
you.
Go to those people.
I've got the link in and everything. Do you have a website for your?
Yeah, it's the Christian Nationalist Party. It's nice and long for you.
Nationalist Party.
Those guys would be pretty shocked if you all piled in.
.what?
.com.
.com. Cool. Yeah. Sorry, apologies. I just
no, don't worry. I saw it up on the screen and I thought
I plugged one of your competitor parties.
Oh, sorry, it's so you got to put the at the beginning. It's the. Okay. But anyway, don't worry, it's fine. If anyone wants to find it, it's on my Twitter.
Twitter, yeah. And what you on Twitter?
I'm still Jayda BF, actually. Overhang from the old days. At Jayda BF.
Yes, of course, yes. Well, I'm gonna put that. I'm gonna find you on Twitter, and then people will find you there for that. But thank you for coming on, Jayda. It's been absolutely fantastic. It's been really
thanks for having me. I was quite a deep conversation about theology in the end, but I know it's probably a bit heavy for people. I'm happy to have these discussions, but I just think that there are lots of angles that people can look at this, and I would urge anyone who's still on the fence to just consider some of the angles that you and I have said, as in, like, if this was another country, would this be considered normal? And the fact that none of this, what they're saying, isn't actually anything to do with Christianity, and just try and work out what you think the agenda is. Is this really in the interest of the British people? Because I don't believe it is.
Exactly. I do agree. But yeah, I find it all fascinating. Even though I say that, I personally don't, at the moment anyway, don't follow that path. I do find all of that scripture stuff really fascinating. It might sound boring.
I think you'll be back, Sean. I think you'll be back. I'll send you some stuff to read. And but yeah, you just don't
read.
Listen
sorry,
to
no point. I can't read. No point.
I'll send you something to listen to.
All right. Okay. Yeah. Damn it. Right. Okay. Cool. Anyway, Jayda, thanks for coming on again. Take care and have a good interview in your next interview. Yeah.
Thanks, mate. Take care. God bless. See ya.
See you soon.